Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
We are Howling Giant. I'm Zach. I play drums and do some backup vocals.
And I'm Tom. I play guitar and I sing lead vox.
I'm Seabass. I play bass and sing backup vocals.
And how would you describe the music of Howling Giant?
I guess we're a rock band who likes to experiment in kind of some heavier styles. Definitely a prog influence and a little bit of doom influence, for sure.
And where are you guys based?
We're from Nashville, Tennessee.
So let's talk a little bit about how Howling Giant came together. What led to you guys forming?
Yeah, originally Zach and I went to college together, and we were in different bands at the time. And we decided to create a side project just kind of for fun, focusing on like the Sword style riffs, Sleep, and a lot of those classic like stoner metal bands. We were called Skulldozer at the time, and it turned out to be super fun. We were writing songs about our Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. I think we had songs like Anthos the Minotaur. Whale Lord we actually wrote back in the Skulldozer days.
Husk was an original one that we do these days. And then we had other hits that never made the cut later. Dire Bear, Flight of the Demon Crow.
Oh, dude, that was awesome. Those were the glory days. But yeah, that was back in Boston. So when we graduated college, we decided to move with a few friends to Nashville, and we kind of took like a year off or two, I think, and then reformed under the name Howling Giant, and that's what we are today.
So do you guys want to tell people where you went to school in Boston?
Yeah, we went to Berklee College of Music, Broccoli College of Vegetables. That's what we did.
We did it.
We did it. We learned our scales. We learned our arpeggios.
Traditional harmony. Am I using it now? Couldn't say.
I would say the biggest thing I got out of Berklee was that everybody watched Metalocalypse at the time. And I think that show taught me some of the most usable skills that I have today. I think I learned from Metalocalypse.
Yeah.
And what would those skills be?
That you should grow your hair as long as you possibly can. It's okay to play electric guitars in hot tubs. And the dream is to eventually play on a giant floating metal island, jet propelled and hovering above the earth, and it's okay to write albums to sea creatures. I think that's what I learned.
Hence Whale Lord.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you guys write about everyday life. Those are very relatable themes.
Everyday life, yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty mundane, really.
Were you guys all from the East Coast originally?
I'm from Minnesota, and then I moved out to Boston.
Yeah, I'm an Army brat. We moved around a whole lot. And then I pretty much moved to Boston, then made the move here. So just kept going. Nashville's the longest I've been anywhere. Really.
Seabass joined on board once we moved to Nashville. Seabass.
Yeah, I'm originally from Philadelphia, and I came down to Nashville in 2011. I went to school down here and met up with these guys just through the rock scene in Nashville and actually through the brewery scene as well, because we all used to work for breweries kind of before the whole COVID thing.
We're beer boys.
We're beer boys.
And we kind of stole Seabass from another band at the time, right?
That's true.
Yes.
We sharked him.
Yeah. I'm officially sharked.
It was great.
This band is cutthroat in business.
Why Nashville?
We, honestly, for Tom and I at least, we kind of were looking, all the musicians from our school were going to LA or New York. And I don't know, I visited both and it just didn't really vibe with me. We had a bunch of buddies moving down who were songwriters and they kind of sold it to me. And at the time, it was cheaper to live here.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of searching for a strong music city. We were, at the time that we moved, I don't think we necessarily knew for sure that Howling Giant was going to exist, but there were like so many music opportunities. And with the cheaper living and with all of our friends and the support group that we had down here.
And I think cities like LA or New York are kind of more like entertainment towns, whereas Nashville is really focused on being like a musician's town. The home for musicians.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Nashville, but the first thing that comes to mind is the music there.
Yeah, I mean, lots of songwriters, a lot of country, but there's so much more here. We kind of talk about it all the time. It's just there is a scene for any style of music. and it's each one's thriving. I mean, the hip hop scene here is pretty incredible.
Yeah, the hip hop scene is really big here. The underground metal scene is great.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of really cool metal bands, and especially a lot of like rockers from the '80s kind of moved here after they kind of want a more relaxed life. So
yeah, a lot of them moved out to the country, kind of just outside of town here. So
yeah.
it's weird, you get those guys coming in to just.
You see
to
Dave
hang out
Mustaine somewhere walking down the street, or Kid Rock,
It could be also that they don't have to pay like any local income tax around here. Yeah. And they were just like, well, cool, cheaper. Let's go to Nashville. Screw LA.
About what year would this have been when you guys moved to Nashville?
I moved here with Tom fall of 2013. And then we kind of started moving with the band a little bit more with our old bass player when he came down like early 2014, which is when we started working on the first EP, just the self-titled EP.
You spoke a little bit about the prog influence on your music. One of the things that I think separates Howling Giant from a lot of other bands is the fact that you write conceptually. There are a lot of conceptual themes running through your EPs and your album. I guess let's start with why the concept albums? Why is this something that interests you?
I think for us, concept albums kind of help focus. In an album, we like to have a common theme. It helps the songs feel more cohesive. I've always felt that it's important when listening to an album to be able to start it and listen through the whole thing. We've never necessarily subscribed to the idea of writing like a hit single and then the rest being kind of filler. We wanted everything to serve a purpose. So by creating a story, it let us hone in and give each song a very specific purpose and function so that you can listen to the whole thing start to back. Yeah, it's been hard, I think, as a songwriter for me to just write about some really kind of short, singular, like emotional idea. I think being able to tap into characters and fiction gives a lot of fuel.
Well, and it kind of taps into the original purpose of songwriting, from ancient times, which is storytelling. That's what it was all about. Like, if anyone was singing, that it was always telling a story, and that just, it was easier to wrap our heads around something like that.
For sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about the concepts behind Black Hole Space Wizard and your first album, The Space Between Worlds?
So with Black Hole Space Wizard, that was something we had dreamed up when we were in college, like as schoolboys. We wrote the song Husk, and we kind of envisioned this universe, and we always joked about just this Black Hole Space Wizard project, like high concept. We didn't know how we wanted to do it. We just had an idea of a storyline. And it all started with Husk, which, funny enough, was not included in those EPs. It was in the first self-titled. But that was the origin story of this character, the Pioneer, that we started to follow. So, I mean, fast forward down to Nashville, and we were like, just recording everything we did. Like, the first EP was in Tom's bedroom. The second one we did, we got a just random call when we applied for the Converse Rubber Tracks program, and they brought us back to Boston to do 4 songs in 2 or 3 days. So we ended up going up there, and we were just trying to figure out what to do. And we were like, okay, let's start the Black Hole Space Wizard stuff finally, like we were talking about. And we had a couple songs. We started working on it. We had a concept. And then the next thing we know, for some reason that got a little traction on Bandcamp. So we were like, okay, let's make this a multi-part series. And we did part 2. So that is just our love of sci-fi just boiled all into one pot, the melting pot of all of our nerdisms. And it's completely ridiculous. It has all the stoner buzzwords. So
and people have been constantly asking for part 3. Yeah. And we can't say anything right now.
What I can say is that it is real, but I just don't know when it's going to materialize. We are just conduits pulling energy from the sky. And sometimes it's Black Hole Space Wizard. Sometimes it's not. And I think that's where we got with The Space Between Worlds. We started writing just a bunch with no real intention. We were like, we need to do a full-length album. Is it part 3? Is it something else? We don't know. We wrote. And in that time, we had 3 songs together. And our friend Kevin ended up playing bass on the first 3 tracks, but that's while we were meeting Sebastian. And we started to gain more songs in the camp of not Black Hole Space Wizard, and said, okay, let's do a full length that's outside of that universe. And we still need a concept, because for us, I feel like it makes writing lyrics a little easier to have some sort of story, and it's a little more visual for us.
Yeah.
So, and then Seabass came in, and we kind of, briefed him on the whole deal, taught him everything, and he jumped right in with us, and we worked on the Space Between Worlds. And that was just like, it was a really good time. Got Seabass going in the band.
It was kind of exciting to almost immediately jump in the band and then have a new project, because, normally when you join a band that's already been established, just kind of like, all right, well, we have to learn these songs, and then it's going to be, we're going out on the road for forever. And, that's really just what you focus on, is like the older songs, and then just constantly playing shows. And so for this, it was kind of like, all right, hey, you're joining the band. By the way, we have this timeline set, and here's what we didn't want to do with this album. So let's just jump in and go. And so it was really fun to kind of experience a new area of songwriting, and just to write with new people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And to come out of Black Hole Space Wizard Part 2, we still wanted to do a concept, like I mentioned, but we wanted a little more freedom, because we were telling a pretty linear story. So we wanted the idea of these dimensional gateways, so you could just drop down into a world for a single song, something like Cybermancer, which in the grand scheme of things almost doesn't fit in the album, but it fits thematically in the way that we just said, okay, we're writing different scenes. Each song is a different episode of the Twilight Zone, but there is an overall story that connects everything, but you can just drop in at any point. And that's, a classic prog thing a lot of people do.
And it was kind of fun to be able to experiment with different styles of rock as well. Like, having the psychedelic stuff, having the heavy stuff, and then having something like Cybermancer that's a little bit more on the punk side. So to be able to do a different, facets of the genre was really fun.
An excuse to be weird is always what we're looking for.
Yeah.
We like some weird pop punk and stuff like that on top of all this stoner doom prog. Like, who didn't listen to Green Day in middle school,
So when we're talking about the concepts, is there a narrative that you follow from song to song? And is there a character that the albums are about?
So Black Hole Space Wizard really focuses on a single character more than anything else, the Pioneer and his journey. And when he's pretty much all alone for the most part. We're just kind of filling in some backstory in Part 1. Part 2, he's on this husk planet Earth, but discovers there is this enclave of druids. So you get a song about them with Circle of Druids. He meets this lone wizard at the very end of that EP. So we're introducing a lot of those characters, and Part 3 eventually will be about the ultimate showdown between him and the Black Hole Space Wizard. So that is a very character-focused album. Space Between Worlds, you have this character, the Huntress, who in her dream state is a sort of dream warrior and protector of a realm that connects all human dreams. It's a nexus of sorts. And each song, some of them, like we mentioned with the dimensional portals, drops you down into a just different character. That's almost her diving into this portal, this well, and experiencing the life or the dreams of a specific person. Ice Castle, Cybermancer, stuff like that. And then there are other songs like Comet Rider introducing the Huntress, and Stone Giant being the end, and Nomad is all about her specifically. So pretty character driven on some of the songs, and others it's just somebody else completely. And then you have the Split, which was just, we wanted to do something else.
Yeah, that was really fun to be able to work with Sergeant Thunderhoof and kind of collaborate on a story with them. That's something that we've never really done before.
Yeah.
So to be able to, work with them and create that story was really cool.
In that way, just taking folklore and adapting our songwriting to something that existed already.
Yeah, I guess we weren't really creating the story, but kind of making our own interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.